first thing we start with is the word itself, jinn. What does the word jinn mean? And what is interesting about the Arabic language is that it is a language that is very ancient. And that's why it's actually one of the most ancient languages. And it is a language that cares a lot about expressing and clarifying the main meanings that it wants to convey to the people. The word jinn, they say, janna layla ay ata wa satara wa ghatta. They say when the layl makes jinn, and jinn here as a verb, it means it came and it darkened things, and it concealed things, and it hid things. And therefore, the word jinn in its essence, linguistically, refers to the concept of satr, the concept of concealing something and hiding something beyond the ability of the eyes seen in it. And that's why the jinn are called so. قالوا الجن اسم يدعى لمن يتقى ولا يرى. It is a name that is given to creatures that people fear, but they cannot see. And that's why the embryo is called in Arabic, what? Janeen. Why Janeen? Because he is concealed within the womb of his mother. So the eye cannot see him. And now, why is Jannah called Jannah? The ulama said, because the greatness of the trees that cover it will hide what is inside, and therefore it is concealed. Another opinion says that it is so because it's concealed from the eyes of the people. So therefore, the essence of the word jinn is actually a word that refers to something that you cannot see. What are they made of? What is the essence of the creation of the jinn? Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in more than one verse, He spoke to us about the essence of the jinn and the creation. And He says, وَالْجَنَّ خَلَقْنَاهُ مِنْ قَبْلُ مِنْ نَارِ السَّمُومِ. And the jinn, we have created them before from the fire. Now, one problem that I faced when I looked at the translations is that they said they are created from a flameless fire, or some they say a smokeless fire, I think. And this is not fully correct. And this is not fully correct. Because the ulama of tafsir, when they came to explain the meaning of nar al-samum, they did not mention that. In fact, some of them, they mentioned that it is mixed with smoke. That's why Ibn Abbas, radiallahu anhu, and Ikrimah, and even narrated from Hassan, he said, خُلِقَ الْجَنُّ مِنْ أَحْسَنِ النَّارِ. They have been created from the tip of the fire and from the best of the part of the fire. And Imam Nawawi, may Allah have mercy upon him, when he commented on the tafsir of the ayah in Surah Al-Rahman, خُلِقَ الْجَنُّ مِنْ مَارِجٍ مِنْ نَارٍ, he said, meaning from a fire, من نار اختلطت مع الدخان أو مزجت مع الدخان, from a fire that has been mixed with smoke. And therefore, the essence of the creation of the jinn is actually taken from the what? From the tip of the fire, and from the point where the fire, as you can see, the flame of the fire can actually make some smoke, and this is the essence of their creation. And the Rasul ﷺ, in the hadith narrated by found in the Sahih of Imam Muslim, and narrated by Aisha radiallahu anha, he says, خُلِقَ الْمَلَائِكَةُ أو خُلِقَتِ الْمَلَائِكَةُ مِن نُور. The angels have been created from light. وَخُلِقَتِ الْجَانُّ مِن نَار. And the jinn have been created from fire. وَخُلِقَ آدَمُ مِمَّا وُصِفَ لَكُمْ. And Adam has been created from what has been described to you. And the existence of jinn is something that people have accepted and have believed for centuries. Not only because they exist, but because jinn have existed way before the creation of the human. That's why Allah says, the fact that He's created for وَالْجَنَّ خَلَقْنَاهُ مِنْ قَبْلُ مِنْ نَارِ السَّمُومِ. And the jinn we have created it from before. Before what? From before the creation of the human, from the actual fire. And inshallah, we're going to comment about some of the stories or some of the things that have been mentioned in some of the books of Sirah in relation to their creation and when they were created. And therefore, the existence of jinn is something that many humans agree that it does exist and they accept. That's why Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah in Majmu' al-Fatawa, when he speaks about him, he says, وَلَمْ يُخَالِفْ أَحْدٌ مِنْ طَوَائِفِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ فِي ثُبُوتِ خَلْقِ الْجِنِّ. And he said, no one from the different sects, across the different sects of the Muslims, have denied the existence of jinn, except إِلَّا طَائِفَةً إِلَّا بَعْضَ الطَّوَائِفِ كَالْجَهْمِيَّةِ وَالْمُعْتَزِلَةِ. Except some small minority sects like the Jahmiyyah and the Mu'tazila, where they have issues in relation to them. And he said, حتى اليهود والنصارى قد آمنوا بوجودهم. Even the Jews and the Christians believe in their existence. And not only that, even polytheists and people who have no divine religion, they believe in existence. And for you to deny the existence of jinn, it is basically for you to deny your senses. Because people hear them, people see them, some people make direct contact with them, and they speak to them, and it can even go further than that. And that's why only those who denied the existence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have denied the existence of the jinn or anything that is metaphysical, because for them to believe in so, then this will necessitate on them to believe in God. And because they don't want to do so, they'll try to deny the whole thing. And that's why some people, for example, you hear them saying, jinn, they're nothing but a negative energy that exists within the evilness of the human, and that's why he can see. But this is a complete fallacy. Because of many reasons, I'm going to mention some of them later on, but what the biggest fact of that is that not only those who are affected by them can see them, even those who are not affected by them can see them. What I mean by saying that is that sometimes, and it happens with those who work in Ruqya, we call it spiritual healing now, because I think exorcism is illegal, okay? Which is spiritual healing through the Qur'an. Even those who are sitting around them, sometimes they can witness things that relate to jinn. And not only the one who is affected by it, even the eyewitnesser can actually see it for himself. Now, the different terms that have been used in the Islamic literature, and it is something that is also found across other literature as well, other than the Arabic literature, is that there's something that speaks about jinn and something that speaks about shayateen. So is jinn and shayateen one thing, or are they two different things? Do they both have the same essence, or do they have different origins? The ulama differed, and there are two main opinions in relation to that. The first opinion is the opinion of Abdullah ibn Abbas, radiallahu anhu, wa an abih, where he said that the jinn are actually the offspring of their father, a particular father who is like Adam. And they differed about the name, and I'll get back to this later on, and they said he is al-Jan. He goes, أما الشياطين فهي نسل إبليس. He goes, as for the shayateen, it is actually a term that gets used to describe the descendants or the offspring of Iblis. And he said, and therefore, the jinn themselves, who actually have their own father, they actually live and die. As for Iblis and his offspring, then they are actually have been exempted from the test of death because of the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the father the exemption of death, so he can continue to deceive people. This is one opinion. The second opinion is the opinion of Al-Hasan al-Basri, may Allah have mercy upon him, from the great ulama of the Tabi'een, where he says, and of course these opinions have been mentioned in the books of tafsir. And one of them is Ibn Kathir, also Imam Qurtubi, may Allah have mercy upon him, speaks about that. He says, Al-Hasan, what he said is that the jinn are actually, all of them, and the jinn and shayateen, they get to one origin, and they come from Iblis. And as Adam is the father of the humans, then Iblis is the father of the jinn. He goes, and amongst them there are those who are believers and those who are not believers, and therefore hum shuraka'u fi thawab wal aqab. He goes, and therefore some of them that are held accountable for the actions, and they'll be going to Jannah, and some of them will be held accountable for their sins, and they'll be going to the hellfire. And man kana minhum mu'minan fahuwa min awliya Allah, wa man kana minhum kafiran fahuwa shaytan. He goes, and therefore, the one that believes amongst them, then he is from the awliya of Allah, and the one who disbelieves amongst them, then he is a shaitan. So therefore, Al-Hasan al-Basri believed Iblis is the father of the jinn. And Ibn Abbas said otherwise. And he said, and Allah says in the Qur'an, Allah spoke about the word shaitan, and he used it to describe not only jinn, but even وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًّا شَيَاطِينَ الْإِنسِ وَالْجِنِّ يُوحِي بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ زُخْرُفَ الْقَوْلِ غُرُورًا. And we have assigned for every prophet enemies who are shayateen, from the humans and from the jinn. They reveal to one another and they deceive each other, so they can actually stand against the message of the prophets and the messengers. So he said here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word shayateen to refer to humans and to refer to jinn. And that's why he used to support his argument. Also, another thing that he used to support his argument is the fact that there is a hadith narrated by Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, radiyallahu anhu, where he came, he said in the masjid of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, without praying, and then the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said to him, get up and pray. So he got up and he prayed. And then he sat next to the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said to him, Ya Abu Dharr, ta'awwad min sharri shayateen al-insi wal-jinn. He goes, oh Abu Dharr, seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the evil and the wickedness of the shayateen, of the humans and the jinn. Abu Dharr said to the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, قال يا رسول الله أو هناك شياطين من الإنس؟ قال نعم. Said to him, Ya Rasulullah, are they shayateen from the ins? He said, yes. That's the argument that he used. And I personally favor, and a number of mashayikh favor the opinion of Al-Hasan al-Basri, may Allah have mercy upon him, and they use the same quotation. But personally, I favor the opinion of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. I favor the opinion of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. Based on what? Based on literature that has been written by people who have had contact with jinn, and based on information that I actually had when I had contact with them through the sessions of exorcism, where they actually, after they become Muslim, you start speaking to them and they'll start giving you some information. And a lot of people believe that the children of Iblis do not die, and this is not actually because this whole issue is not an issue that has been supported by hardcore evidence. Yani when Al-Hasan al-Basri says, I believe that Iblis is the father of the jinn. What is the basis of this? That's the opinion that he thinks. But there's nothing from the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam ever to indicate that he said so. And Ibn Abbas, may Allah have mercy upon him, I feel that in this situation, actually was Basri. Some Basri believed that actually the jinn, ulama who had that belief, he believed that the jinn do not die. And he believed that they grow old, and then after they grow old, they go back and they become young again. But the reality of the experiences that a lot of ruqat had for that they die, and sometimes they die during the ruqyah sessions. Okay, when you're reciting Qur'an over them for a particular period of time, with particular verses, even if they are from the shayateen, then they die. And therefore, this opinion is not an opinion that has been supported strongly. Then we ask, why is it described as shaitan? The word shaitan, as the ulama of lugha say, as Abu Baqa al-Askari says, هو من وزن فعال. It's actually from root in morphology that's called fa'al. And أصله شطن يشطن إذا بعد. And the word شطن means someone that went far. So they say شطن البعير أي إذا بعد. We say that the camel made شطن means went far. And therefore, the word shaitan, in the essence, it is used to refer to something that has been casted far away. And that's why it's described like this. And since Iblis and his followers, and whoever disbelieves from the jinn, took that path, then they have been casted away from the what? From the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they have went away from what? From the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore they are called shaitan because they are far. And that's why they use the word shaitan not only to refer to jinn, but even to refer to anyone that rebels against the custom of his people. So if someone that belongs to a particular tribe, for example, they have a set custom amongst the Arabs, and then he decides to go against them, they will call him a shaitan. Why? Because he rebelled against the custom of his people. So therefore, shaitan is nothing but an adjective, a title that has been given to a jinni that has refused to accept the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and has chosen a path that is far from the mercy of Allah and from his Jannah, and has rebelled against him. That's why he's a shaitan. And whoever has the same similarity as him from the will be given the same description. Like, what does the word Iblis then mean? Who knows? Iblis means the one who is against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Iblis means the one who is against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore, the word shaitan is nothing but an adjective, a title that has been given to a jinni that has refused to accept the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and has chosen a path that is far from the mercy of Allah and from his Jannah, and has rebelled against him. That's why he's a shaitan. Who knows? Now we know the meaning of the word shaitan. The meaning of the word Iblis. Why is he called Iblis? What people do not know is that they assume that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives someone a particular description, then that's the only name that he's known. Iblis is known by tens of names. He's known by tens of names. And sometimes the shayateen who are actually, sometimes that you have contact with them during the ruqyah sessions, they'll repeat some of the names of Iblis. Because they have their own names for him as well. So the word Iblis, what does it mean? It means al-ya'is, the one that has lost complete hope. The one that has lost complete hope. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described him as such because he lost complete hope from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when the human has a chance of repenting back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when a jinni has a chance of repenting going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Iblis does not have any more chance. And as such, he called him, and he was given the title, Iblis. Ublisa ay yu'isa min, ya'is, no hope. And that's why he was given that name. And therefore the word shaitan and the word Iblis are not words of praise. They are actually words of debasing this creature. Because of the fact that he moved away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's why he's called Iblis. Meaning the one that has lost hope from the mercy of Allah. طيب, when were the jinn created? Nothing from the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has spoken about that. And therefore the ulama of Islam, scholars of Islam, they relied on tales that have been carried from the books of the people of Kitab, from the books of the Jews and the Christians, and from the nations that existed from before. So some they say that the name of the father of the jinn is Sumiya. And they said when he was created, he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked him, what would you like? He goes, أحب أرى ولا أرى. أن أرى في الثرى وأن أعود بعد أن أكون كهلا. He said, I'd love for myself to see enough to see. And for me when I die, to actually go far and get buried in the ground by myself. And for me to return young after I get old. Some they say 40 years, some they say 2,000 years before the creation of the humans. But what we know for a fact from the Qur'an and from the words of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that they did exist before the creation of the humans, and they caused massacres amongst each other. And because of these massacres, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished them, and He sent on them particular type of angels that fought them and cast them away to the seas. Not all of them, but the main groups of them. That's why the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam speaks about the fact that when Iblis, what he does is that he places his throne on the water. On the water of the what? On the water of the ocean. Okay? And then he says, ثُمَّ يَبْعَثُ السَّرَايَا, and then he sends his groups to make decision between people. And those who had, some of the ulama, like Imam al-Suyuti, may Allah have mercy upon him, and even Imam Shibli, may Allah have mercy upon him, who wrote literature about them, they said that the particular children of Iblis who are responsible for different tasks in relation to deceiving the humans. Some are responsible for zina, some are responsible for deception in financial transactions, so forth. So therefore, some they say 40 years, some 2,000 years, but there's nothing from the Sunnah that indicates exactly when they were created. But what we know for a fact is that they did shed blood amongst them, and that's why they were fought. And from these tales we know that Iblis, if we were to comment on his life just a bit, is that he is someone that was a worshipper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the story behind that, they say, is that when this happened, they took from the jinns some prisoners. And that's why some people, they say that Iblis, before he was given the title, he was called Azazil. And they said that term Azazil was given to him by the angels because he was taken up to the heavens. He was given that access, and he's from some they say he's from the flying type. Because the jinn are actually different types, we're going to come to that. And he lived there for a while until the point where he refused to accept the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to prostrate to Adam alayhi salam. And then as a result of that, he was casted down from the heavens. And the reality is that Iblis is not from the angels, but because of the fact that he became such a good worshipper, he was endorsed by them. and he was given access to the heavens where he can go up and go down. And this is something that was not only given to Iblis, other jinn from particular types were allowed actually to access the heavens, because the heavens are made of how many levels? 7 levels. So they were able to they were given access to particular areas within the heavens where they can travel, go up and down. This restriction did not happen to them until the message of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Only at the time of the reception, at the time of the message of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, were the jinn restricted from actually entering the heavens. Before that, they were given the access. They were allowed to have the access where they'll go up to particular levels, and they can eavesdrop on what happened and what is said between the angels. And we're going to go back to that. But Iblis was given a different access until the fact that he was casted away from the heavens. Another question that comes to jinn is that, do jinn eat? Do they drink? Also, the ulama have differed in relation to that. But in reality, they do eat and they do drink, and there are hadith from the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam that speak about that. Many hadith. One of the hadith is the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, where actually he went to defecate, and then he asked Abu Hurairah to something so that he can use to cleanse himself. So what Abu Hurairah did is that he brought him a piece of bone. So the Rasul said to him, do not give me this ever again, because the rawth and the azam is the food of your brothers from there. And this is Bukhari and Muslim and the books of Tirmidhi and others. Because what happened is that the ulama differed in relation to the types. Some that said that particular types of them that eat and drink, and some that said that particular types of them that do not, or some of them that said that they all don't eat and drink. But in reality, they all drink. So in this incident, what happened is that the Prophet told Abu Hurairah what happened to him. He said to him, there is a delegacy, Atani wafd Nasib, wa ni'mal jinn. He goes, a wafd from the city of Nasibin came to me from the jinn, and that's of jinn. And actually, I sat with the religion and they asked me for food, and I said to them, any bone that is left where the name of Allah has been mentioned over it, then it is for you to consume. And as for the rawth, and the rawth is actually the dung of the animal, is actually food for your animals. And of course, people freak out. Okay, we know that jinn exists, but do they have the animals as well? And in reality, yes, they do have the animals. They do have the horses. They do have the cattle that they use, that some of them use in their traveling. Not all of them, but some of them use in their traveling. Also from the hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he tells us that we should eat in our right hand, we understand that the jinn and the shayateen, they eat as well, because the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and do not eat with your left. Verily the shaitan eats with his left, which he what? The problem is that some people, what they want to do when it comes to the jinn is that they want to understand exactly how they work. And when he eats, how does he eat? What does he do? How does the food get consumed by him? And this is something that you'll never be able to understand fully. You may have approximate understanding when you actually had the chance of making some contact with them. But in reality, no one will have that full understanding. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the first place made them a world that is unseen. And your nature as a human is that you cannot understand something unless you can see it, observe it, study it. True or not? How many people have been how many bodies have been cut, have been diagnosed, and they go through anatomy, and they try different medication on you, and they do different tests in the laboratories, and they can find a medicine that suits you. How many of them? Hundreds. And then they say, now, this works. You cannot do that with jinn, because you don't even see them. You don't even see them. So therefore, your responsibility as far as believing in them is a responsibility that relates to faith. It's not something that you can fully understand through your logic. Even though it's actually a concept that you can comprehend, and we'll speak about some things that relate to that. Also in the hadith that is found in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, may Allah have mercy upon him, he says that the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that when some of you enters his house and he mentions the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the shaitan will say, you'll not be able to stay with him. If he then he will say, أدركتم المبيت. You have a place where you can sleep in. فإذا ذكر اسم الله على طعامه, so if he mentions the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on his food, they will not be able to eat with him. But if he doesn't, then he will say to them, أدركتم العشاء. He goes, share in his dinner. Which indicates that they can enter and they can eat. And people neglect that. People can go in and go out from their houses tens of times. And they will not think about mentioning the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the funny thing is that sometimes we talk a lot about practicing the sunnah when it comes to the bead, practicing the sunnah when it comes to the abaya, practicing the sunnah when it comes to some. But when it comes to your own protection in your own house, you are very negligent when it comes to it. They don't really care about it at all. And the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and from the mercy of Allah upon us, is that he has taught us what to say before entering. What to say when we are Bismillah walajna, or Bismillah kharajna. And we'll mention the adhkar inshallah fully when we get to the part of protection. By the name of Allah we enter. By the name of Allah subhanahu we exit. But no one mentions it. And by you doing so, you give him a complete access into the house. We also understand from this that the jinn who are believers are not allowed to eat from something that the name of Allah has not been mentioned. And that's why you find that the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, once in a gathering where he was sitting, he sat and he would not let anyone eat from the qas'a, because they have big plates of food, unless he will mention what? The name of Allah. He'll say Bismillah and then he'll eat. And Arabi came, a Bedouin came, and he rushed and he wanted to eat with the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam grabbed his hand and he moved it. He says Bismillah. You say Bismillah, then you eat. Because then a Jariyah came and she rushed and she wanted to eat as if someone is her. And she's coming in a rush. And then also the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam grabbed her hand and put her away, and he said, you have to say Bismillah. And then he commented with the companions and he said to them, Wallah, this is the shaitan trying to have a share in your food. I swear by Allah, waladhi nafsi biyadih, swear by whom that my soul in his hand, when I was grabbing the hand of the man, the hand of the shaitan was there. Because when I grabbed his hand, I felt the hand of the shaitan with him. Why? Because if you sit on, and therefore it's not sufficient for you to say Bismillah. If you sit on a plate of food and that is shared, and anyone that is sitting does not say Bismillah, the shaitan, the qareen, will be allowed to eat from him. Will be allowed to eat from that food. He will not eat with you personally, but he will eat through him and he'll have access through him. So therefore, it's not only important that you say Bismillah, also ensure that whoever sits on your table also says Bismillah, as it is from the sunnah of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do they marry? Do they have offspring? Yes. They marry and they have offspring. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he spoke about the road in the Jannah, when he spoke about the hur, he goes, لَمْ يَطْمَثِهُنَّ إِنسٌ قَبْلَهُمْ وَلَا جَانٍ. He goes, they have not been touched by any humans or jinn, which indicates that they have to marry and to have sexual intercourse and to have children, and this is a reality. And that's why there are some incidents where there's some Muslim ask for the hand of some Muslim woman, of some human woman. Okay, and they came to a particular man, was Imam Malik, may Allah have mercy upon him, and okay, but this, I'm not going to get into that. Okay, this is something that we'll leave it until later. And therefore they eat. But is there need of food like our need of food? Is there need of food like our need of food? From some of the words, some of the conversations that I had with some of them, they said no. And they can stay for years without food. The food is based on more of a desire. Because Aslan, they made wind, and they can actually take different formations themselves. They can take different formations themselves. And before the age, we come to the age of Allah Ta'ala, and that's something that is also important. And if he doesn't eat with me, does that mean that he starves to death? No. They can stay for years without food. And this will not cause him to die, based on what he's saying. Do they die? As I said before, Imam Hassan Basri, may Allah have mercy upon him, said that they don't, but in reality they do, and this is something that anyone that works in ruqya and anyone that's got good experience in it, he knows that this happens. And sometimes when that you're reciting on him himself, he can see him getting burnt. And he can feel him getting burnt. And sometimes they can smell them burning. So they die. The only one who's exempted is Iblis. And they say some of his main children, and he has females, he has a number of males, and he has a number of females. And by the way, those who work in magic, some of them, they actually call upon their name, and they know them by names. Okay, I'm not going to mention. They call them by names. I think there's around he has 6 daughters that I know of, that when there's particular ceremonies that they go through where they make contact with that particular lady. Of course, the magicians think they make contact with that particular lady, but they don't. Usually what happens is that they get sent someone from her. And also sometimes they call upon Iblis and they call him and they think that he comes, but in reality he doesn't come. Iblis is bigger than he's coming to any magician. A magician does not mean anything to Iblis. It's someone that he has used, he has burnt, he has thrown, and what they do to them is something that is very horrible. That is very horrible. We speak about it when it comes to magic, but they send them. So, wallahu alam, and some of his main offspring are still alive, but as followers, they die. They die, and this is something that has happened, and a lot of folk can verify. Where do they live? They live where you live. Okay, some of them live on earth, some of them live in the sea, some of them live in the air, some of them they live in bathrooms, some of them they live in graveyards, and a lot of them live in the sea. And the sea is actually one of the main areas that is known for them. And also some of them live in the desert. So basically they share the complete earth with you. Mountains, anywhere that you can think of, they live in. And they can take. And they can be in mosques, but these ones are only Muslims. And they can be in centers, and these ones are only Muslims. And they can be in synagogues, and they can be in churches, they can be in your own houses. Okay? But you'll not feel them, and sometimes some people will feel them depending on what happens between them. So the perception that some people have that jinn only live in bathrooms and in graveyards is incorrect. Those who live in bathrooms, those who live in are actually the filthy ones. Those ones are these ones are mainly or that are known amongst the people of ruqya and amongst the people of magic as sufliyun, the undergrounds. And the reason why they're called undergrounds is because they are filthy. They feed on filth. And therefore, you understand from this, not all feed on filth. 14 of them, they feed on filth, and they like these filthy places. Sometimes some magicians are required to do regular visits to places like this. And some magician will have to stay in the bathroom for 40 days. Sometimes longer, sometimes less, depending on what he is asking them to give him. All right? But pretty much they can leave anyway. And huge numbers of them live in the sea. Huge numbers of them live in the sea and live in the islands and live in the deserts. And people say, if their number is larger, yes, they're much larger than ours. Because if you think about yourself as a human, faqareen, and there's a type of jinn. Different types of them. So how many of them does exist? In reality, billions of them exist. Exist. So you say, where are they? I say, you're not allowed to see. But those who are allowed to see, some of them, they go crazy from seeing. Because sometimes the reality of things is beyond the capacity of the human mind. The human mind has a particular capacity. If you try to give it too much, what happens to it? It cracks. And that's what happens to some people. Some people cannot handle seeing, they cannot handle seeing them, and actually seeing them becomes, and there is a way that some magicians that they do, and there's some ceremonies and things that they change within themselves, which will allow them to see particular types of the jinn world. And not anyone can dare to do that, because then you'll see world totally different than the way that people see it. And sometimes that's why sometimes what they do, they play with your children, and they play with the crazy people. Sometimes when someone crazy says, I saw something and he said to me, he may not be lying. He may be, but sometimes he may not be lying, because they'll appeal to them, they'll play with them, they'll mess with them. to make him even more crazy. And there is a particular type of magic which is called sihr al-junun. I'll get to it inshallah when we get, I'll speak more about it then. Sihr al-junun is actually a type of magic which is made to make someone go crazy. Which is made to make someone go crazy. Well, they'll not only do things to your brain, but do and play tricks and games with you that your brain will not be able to handle it. What are the most beloved places to them? Any place where there's a ma'asiyah being done is a place that the shaitan would love to be. Any place that a ma'asiyah can be done is a place where I guarantee you there's more than one shaitan in it. Any place of ma'asiyah. And yes, ma'asiyah. Ma'asiyah is sin. Okay, sometimes I use Arabic terms. Ma'asiyah is sin. Any place where there is a sin. And the Rasul ﷺ spoke to us about one of the places where they stay, which is the markets. Why? Because many sins take place in the markets. And if you want to know the reality of that, go down to the shopping center and see what happens. First thing that you see in the shopping center is what? Lying. Now, before women. Lying, cheating, breaking people off, and then mixing. Okay. What's the word for in English? Perving. Okay. Women beautifying themselves, music, things and items of sin everywhere. So basically, everything you want is there. Even today we have licensed brothels, pubs, nightclubs, they are everywhere. And they'll be there. And if people see, when they listen to music, and that's for the young and for the old, if people see what happens around them when they listen to music, they'll realize what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a haram. Because music is one of the biggest things that a jinn can use, not only to enjoy his time and to mess with you, but even to possess you. Even to possess you. And people think that music is something that Allah has made haram only for the sake of restricting your pleasures. No, it's actually a mean of protecting you. Because when you get into that mode of jumping and anyway, I'll get to speak about some of the causes of possession. Yeah, jumping up and down with the techno or rapping and moving around, you have no idea what's happening to your body. Because the jinn cannot enter your body just like that. It takes a procedure for them. It has to have some openings. You have to do particular actions, particular movements that will allow them access into the body. And one of the mode that you're into when you're listening to music. Do they have their own animals? Yes, they have their own animals, and we spoke about that. What are the animals that jinn like? The Rasul ﷺ said, you are allowed, صلوا في مرابض الغنم فإن فيها بركة. Hadith in Muslim, found in Sahih Muslim and other books, it goes, pray in the places where the sheep are actually kept. You are allowed to pray. And I'll speak about Anas ibn Malik speaks about why that happened. I'll get back to that. Because it is blessed. It goes, وَلَا تُصَلُّوا فِي مَبَارِكِ الْإِبِلِ فَإِنَّ فِيهَا الشَّيَاطِينَ. It goes, and do not pray in the place where the camels are kept. For verily, devils stay in these places. And the Rasul says that devils like camels. And that's why there is a hadith which authentic is not very accepted, where it is said that on every camel there might be one devil. But the authenticity of this hadith is not accepted. Some of the ulama, they said, why do they like him? They said the response was that the camels in the nature, and of course in Australia we can't verify that because we don't have that mixing with the camels, is that they are angry creatures, they're angry animals, and they can be very wild. And by shaitan is his nature. Okay, his nature is angry. Jinn are very emotional, and they can get annoyed easily. That's why magicians themselves get bashed by them. Yes, they don't know the right thing. And that's why people warn you from summoning them. They say, oh, don't read the spell. Because if you summon them and they come and you get scared of them one beat, they'll just make a muck out of you. People have had permanent injuries from there, cuts in the faces, losing limbs, broken bones because of that. They're very wild in their nature. Now, we'll get back to music. What happens to you when you're listening to music? Yes, you assimilate to them. Especially those who listen, not especially, actually, all types of music. Anyway, that's something that relates to the nature. That's some of the animals that they like. What can they possess? They can possess anything that is living. They can possess cats, they can possess dogs, they can possess horses, they can possess snakes, they can possess anything that is around. But the favorite thing to possess is a human. SubhanAllah. And one of them dared to say that to me to my face. He said, a human. I said, why human? Because it's big. They get free food, they get a lot of things with SubhanAllah. And also there is some issue of animosity between the humans and the disbelieving jinn. I'm not talking about the Muslim jinn, I'm talking about the disbelieving jinn and the shayateen. And there is a hatred there. And this hatred is something that is inherited across generations. And if you want to understand this concept, then think of the concept of hatred that exists between the humans themselves. Do Arabs like Americans? They don't think about Muslim, non-Muslim. They hate them. Why? Come on. Don't fall asleep. Why? Because they got hurt by them. The jinn, they see the humans as a cause of curse on them, especially the descendants of Iblis. And therefore they have vengeance to seek. And they inherit that. And they inherit that hatred. And they inherit that hatred. That's why Allah tells you, إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ كَانَ لَكُمْ عَدُوًا فَاتَّخِذُوهُ عَدُوًا. Allah says, shaitan is actually an enemy of you. So treat him like an enemy. A simple ruling, a simple idea. He's an enemy. How would you treat an enemy? Omar is my friend. I see him, I hug him, I speak to him, I smile at him, I stay around him. I stay around things that he likes and I like. But if Omar was to turn an enemy of mine, would I give him the access into my life? No. But people do so with the shayateen. And they do so with the disbelieving jinn. They give him complete access in their life when they disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the shaitan can benefit from anything that you do in which there is a disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Are they beautiful? Or are they ugly? When you ask that to jinn, he'll say, no, we're not ugly. Because we're beautiful. But the ulama, they differ in relation to that. They say the devil himself is actually a symbol of ugliness. That's why, that's a funny story that happened. There was a scholar of the Arabic language. He was a Mu'tazili as well. But he's a big scholar of the Arabic language. His name is Al-Jahid. And Al-Jahid, he used to live in Baghdad or in Iraq. He was very ugly. He was very ugly. So once a woman went to a jeweler's and said, I want you to make a ring for me where you put on it the face of a devil. And so he looked at her and he said, how do I know how the devil looks like? So he goes, 1 second. So she went to the Jahid and she said, come with me. SubhanAllah, he went. She goes like this. And she pointed towards him. And then he left and looked at the jeweler. He said, what's going on? And then he told him. The Jahid looked at him and goes, because he knew his ugliness and anything, he just left. Okay? And they are a symbol of ugliness. But are they all ugly? Allahu A'lam. Allahu A'lam. But I know that some of them they do actually have ugly looks, especially the shayateen. And that's why people cannot handle seeing them in the real appearances because they will shake their hearts. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, when he speaks about one of the encounters, he describes how some of them look like. The shaitan, he has horns, and that's why you see a lot of cartoons. They show that the shaitan they draw something that is red. By the way, they're not all red. That's not correct. And they say that it has 2 horns. But do all jinn that? No. Okay, again, from information that a lot of, so that not a lot, some of the ruqat had with them, they don't all have horns. And that's something that I verified personally as well through personal encounters. They say some of them, particular types of them who are the descendants of Iblis, they all have horns, but they don't all have horns. In fact, they have different shapes and different looks and different heights and different sizes as well. And the way that subhanAllah Allah created them can differ. Some of them are very, very hairy, and the hair can be very long. And subhanAllah, to some of them, hair is actually a sign of beauty. So when they choose, okay, and that's what one of them said, and actually a number of them said that. Because when they look at females amongst them, for example, they're always like, the hair is what they look for. You know, they say, who's got the most beautiful hair, and that's the one they'll choose to marry. But subhanAllah, the shaitan himself is a symbol of ugliness, and people can fully understand that because of the fact that he's actually a person of sin and disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Iblis himself, he is, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about Shajarat al-Zaqum, and even the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he spoke about the place where they buried the spell that was put for him, he goes, the heads of the palms look like the heads of the devils. And in reality, I don't believe that, and I believe that for a fact, they're not more beautiful than humans. In fact, that actually humans are more beautiful than them, because Allah says, إِنَّا خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. And the best of the creation, so they cannot more beautiful than them. That's why a lot of them, they do actually appeal and they like the human women. And some of them also, they like the human men. What kind of powers do they have? Or actually, before I get into that, how many types of them exist? Now, when the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam speaks about them, you have to understand that the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that's his habit, when he spoke about jinn in general, he will give you information on a basis. So you'll learn, he'll tell you about them as much as you need to know, so you can, for example, protect yourself. When he was asked sallallahu alaihi wasallam about him, he goes, hum thalathatu asnaf, there are three types of them. Minhum hayyatun wa kilab. There's a type of them which is snakes and dogs. He goes, وَمِنْهُمْ قَوْمٌ يَطِيرُونَ, and some of them they fly. وَمِنْهُمْ قَوْمٌ يَحِلُّونَ وَيَضْعَنُونَ, and some of them actually they travel from one place to another. Also, when the Qur'an speaks about their powers in relation to Sulaiman, it speaks about that some of them were able to construct and some of them were able to dive. And now in terms of the habitat, the ulama, they classify them, or some of the reciters, they classify them into those who live in the sea, and they come into the earth, and those who live on earth, mainly, and those who fly. Of course, you're going to ask me how they fly. Qatada, may Allah have mercy upon him, one of the ulama of tafsir, he was asked by one man, and he made a big mistake when he asked that question. He said to him, how do they fly? He goes, how do you think they fly? They fly with wings. And they have wings. And they have wings, and they have different levels of speed. And they're very fast. And they can be very, very, very fast. And subhanAllah, the wings, and even the size of the wings will grow according to their sizes. And subhanAllah, some of them, they live in the mountains, and you'll have the sizes will be big. Some of them actually are small and short. And that's why some people, for example, they say, I'll see a small shadow, and I'll see something small going past. That will actually be a shadow of one of them who is actually midgets. And that's why some of the myths that you see around are not complete myths, but they are nothing but the jinn messing up with the human minds. And seeing some of them. And that's why when the Greeks, for example, they speak about the different that they see, and the god of this and the god of that, and they talk about the different scriptures and different descriptions, they're actually talking about jinn playing around with them. When I say play around with them, I don't mean like they're joking with them. What I mean is that I'm messing with the belief. Because they will see something and they'll think that it is a god. But it's not a god. Because the jinn has the ability to take any shape he likes. And he can appear in any shape that he likes. And their abilities will differ according to the ages and according to the sizes of the powers. What are some of the powers? First, they're very fast. They're very fast. They say, and that's not something that is from the Sunnah, but that's something that has been carried around. They say that some of them, the slowest of them will be as fast as 70 kilometers per hour. And that's the slowest of them. Yes, that's the slowest of them. That's actually the small size ones. And this one's actually, they're not made for traveling. Don't laugh, okay, because it's serious. And by the way, people laugh a lot about jinn. Okay? But you don't know that sometimes you're laughing too much can be because of them attacking you. And that does happen. And some companions were killed by them. And I'm going to come to some stories as well. They're very strong, massive amount of power to allow them to carry things and to move things. That's why when Sulaiman alayhi salam was sitting and he was asked for the throne of Iblis, قال عفرت من جنتك به قبل أن تقوم من مقامي. He goes, I'll bring it to you before you get up. Okay? The throne of Balqis. Okay? Balqis is the queen of Saba. I think it's called Sheba. Yes? He said, I'll bring it to you before you get up. The ulama had two opinions. One of them said that the first one is that before he stands up, he'll sit and he'll stand up. And the other one said that Sulaiman alayhi salam used to have a gathering of where he'll judge amongst people, which will be from morning until noontime. Because he said that to him within 2 hours. And Sulaiman was living in Jerusalem. And Saba is where, for those who know, in Yemen. Saba in Yemen. How long does it take to travel from Jerusalem to Yemen? By plane. Around 4 hours by plane. So the Afreed said to him, I can bring it to you within that time. And Sulaiman alayhi salam was a bit content. But the one who has ilm from the kitab, what did he say to him? قال أنا آتيك به قبل أن يرتد إليك طرفك. He goes, I can bring it to you before your sight. If you look far and then you look back before your sight comes back. Why? Because the first one relied on his own power and his Afreed. And Afreed actually is because the Jinn are actually in different categories, the Afreed is the strongest of them. But though that person that learned from the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they say that Allah has taught him one of his names, one of his great names. And he just called by that name and the throne was there. Which shows you that Afreed, when he relied on his power, take him time. But that man, when he relied on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what happened? No time. And there's no place. They say the name of that man was Asif ibn Barkhaya. They say his name was Asif ibn Barkhaya. And this is from the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon those who believe in him. Also, they don't all have that. They have the power to fly in the heavens. They all have that? No. Only the flying type. Even those who live in the sea, even those who live in the land, even when they can fly, for example, and from what I've heard from them, when they speak, they say, of course, all this after they become Muslim, which is a long battle. Then you can get a pleasure of speaking for a couple of hours and you tell them to leave and then they leave. They can fly at low distances, but those who can travel up the heavens are only those who have wings. And even themselves, they can travel according to particular ranges within the sky. They cannot go, those who are from that age, for example, cannot go that high. Exactly like planes. Exactly like planes. Can any plane fly at any altitude it likes? Altitude it likes? No. There's different altitudes and the same thing applies to them. And by this means, they were able to actually eavesdrop on what the angels used to say. Because what they used to do, as Hassan al-Basri did, he said, they'll actually sit one on top of the other. And he made his fingers like this. He goes, and the first one will actually try to eavesdrop on what the angels are saying. And whatever he catches, he'll pass it on. And then if he gets hit, then he's gone. And the one who survives is the one that can go back, will go back to the magician and will tell him or the kahin, will tell him the information that he wants. Of course, some of you might think, why would they do that? Why would someone risk himself dying? And my answer to you is very simple. There's a reason why you would risk your life by speeding. Why do you risk your life by taking drugs? To them, it's a rush. They get a rush out of it. And that's why sometimes they do this. Because they get some sort of enjoyment out of what? Do. They can build, they can construct, and they can build things, architecture that is very complicated beyond the ability of the humans. That's why Sulaiman alayhi salam used to have them work for him. They were responsible for building castles and building big pots, building different types of things for him. And they're the ones who built the sarh, which is sort of like a foyer or like a massive area that when Balqis came to to go, to enter to where the court of Sulaiman was sitting, she had to pass it. And when she saw glass, and then under where there is water, something to do. Even today, they spend millions of dollars to make something similar to that, and took them a long time. I think $60 million, something like that. He actually, the jinn made that specially for him. This is not something that was made before. They said this was something that he asked him to do for her coming. When she enters, for her to be amazed by what kind of power he has. And Sulaiman alayhi salam was given a kingdom that is beyond description. So they have the ability to build architecture that is very, very complicated. That's why it surprised me that some people, they say that they are dumb. What do you mean they're dumb? They eavesdrop, they're manipulative, they're shifty, they're cunning, and they can be very good as well, but I'm talking about the bad ones. And you can say, they're not dumb. They're very, they can be very, very, very cunning. Very cunning. And subhanAllah, until today, I'm dealing with one of them that is very cunning, with a particular sister that he's not leaving. They'll play games, pretend to become Muslim, they'll talk to you, they will lie, and they'll lie a lot. They will lie and take you around, beat around the bush, and then bring you back. So that understanding is not correct. Those who are young of them can have that. You can feel they're a bit, for example, not as smart as the human, but in fact they are very intelligent. They can take any shape they like, especially the shape of humans. And the companions had that encounters themselves. One of them is Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh, where he actually was responsible for the food of sadaqah. Okay? And it happened, I don't want to go too long with it, it happened over 3 nights. Old man coming, Abu Hurairah will catch him stealing from the money of sadaqah. What are you doing? He goes, I'm an old man, Andi ayal. He goes, all right. Gave him the dates, went away. Second night, he came back. Of course, the Rasul sallallahu about this. Because the Rasul sallallahu next day, and that's from the miracles of the Rasul. He said, what did your friend do? Because the Rasul, he said that he's sick and he's got family and he needs and so forth. He goes, all right. He goes, he will come back to you. And he came back to him until the 3rd time, and he said to him, that's it. This time I'm taking to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No way I'm going to let you go. I said to him, if I'll teach you something that will benefit you, would you let me go? And he said, yes. He goes, when you sleep, make sure you read Ayatul Kursi. He goes, when you read Ayatul Kursi, and Ayatul Kursi is the strongest ayah that you can use against Jinn in possession cases, or in any case. Anything you want, any trouble they give you, memorize it and read it, and you'll see how they fly. Or just run for miles, subhanAllah. They hate this ayah. Yes, it's very, very, very strong ayah that has a strong effect on them. Him read it, and Allah will actually, فَإِذَا نِمْتَ فَمَا زَلَ عَلَيْكَ حَافِظًا حَتَّى تُصْبِحْ. Because you'll be under the protection of Allah until you wake up. Next day he went to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Third day, said to him, what did your friend do? Because Abu Hurairah did not know. Abu Hurairah, he's thinking that he's speaking to what? To a human. He said to me, he told me, I called him, I was going to bring him to you. I said to him, and then he said to me that I'm going to teach you something. He told me Ayatul Kursi. He goes, لَقَدْ صَدَقَكَ وَهُوَ كَذُوبٌ. And the word kadhub is sighat mubalagha. He said he has spoken the truth to you even though he is persistently a liar. And he's a very big liar. He goes, he said the truth. He goes, Ya Abu Hurairah, do you know who you've been talking to? He goes, do you know who you have been speaking to? He said, no. He goes, you have been speaking to the shaitan. You have been speaking to the shaitan. So they can take any form they like. That's why, wallah, there's a sister, an old one, alhamdulillah, she's good now, from Lebanon. He was in love with her. Her husband will leave the house, will go down, and then she'll hear a knock on the door, and she'll open it, and she'll see her husband in front of her. And she'll look, and he just left. Why? So he can actually trick her. They can take any form they like. But there's not something that is easy for them to do. It takes a lot of energy out of them to take a particular shape and to take a particular form. That's why only those who are strong of them, they can do that. And that appearance cannot stay for a long time. Because the asl in them, for them to be what? For them to be hidden, to be unseen. So when they do that and they take a particular formation, that they take, it takes a lot of energy out of them. It's not easy. What do they favor? I said they favor a lot of animals. They can take any, they can possess anything. One of the favorite things they like is actually, other than the human, is the devil's dogs. And anything that is black is something that the jinn would like. Anything black is something that the jinn would like. But only black, no, they can possess a white cat, yellow, any color. They can possess any color, but that's their favorite color. Why? Because the black is, first of all, a color of what? Of you being mastur, of khafa, of being unseen. And as a result, they favor the color because also it gives them energy. That's why the Rasul ﷺ speaks about the hadith when he says that hold your children at the time of Maghrib. For the shaitan, for the jinn have a nafra. They go out in great numbers because that's when the darkness comes, that feeds them, that gives them more strength. And subhanAllah, and you think, subhanAllah, the black color is the color that attracts a lot of what? That absorbs all the colors and attracts a lot of energy as well. And that gives them the energy. Okay? But at the same time, they are weak. And they have limitations. And they can only hurt you when you allow them to hurt you. And as long as you are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you make your adhkar properly, you're making your salah properly, you're staying away from sin, that will not be able to hurt you. And that's how people who are possessed, they become good. Because their persistency on the cure will actually help them, and them becoming regular on the adhkar and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught them. And sometimes the cause of the sin of the person can cause someone to be hurt by them. Can they perform miracles? No. Jinn cannot perform miracles. Jinn can only do one thing. First, use what the abilities that Allah gave him to construct, to build, to kill, and so forth. Second, they are the best at making illusions. It's only an illusion. It's not real. And that is the only power that Allah has given them. Even the Dajjal himself. Illusions. That's why when they first, Musa alayhi salam, Musa do. Performed a miracle. But how did that miracle happen? This is a wood. He said, took that wood and he said, Bismillah, and he threw it. Of course, some ulama say that he used a particular name from the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he threw it, turned into a living being. What is this? It's a miracle. Hand made of flesh and blood, put it inside and pull it out, became like what? As shining as the sun. Bright light. That's what? A miracle. What do magicians do? Magicians cannot change the state of one thing into another. Jinn cannot change the thing from one state into another. And for example, sometimes what they do, and this is something that they do to people, he can fool you with money. A magician can come to you and he can pull out $500,000 like this and he'll say, you'll be happy. You'll think that you ripped him off. You sold the car to him. That money after a particular period of time will turn into what? Will turn into its original state. Because it was actually only paper. But the shaitan has the paper to make it an illusion where it looks to your eye as what? As money. So that's why what they did, the magicians, what they did, they threw sticks and the sticks remained as sticks. And the ropes remained as ropes. But they messed up with the eyes of the people. Where the jinn created images in the eyes where they saw the stick of what? Saw a stick, a snake. But they change it. It's only an illusion. And the magician will see that the stick they threw remained as what? A stick. But those around will not be able to do so. That's why they believed and they became big believers in Musa alayhi salam. That's what they're willing for their limbs to be cut and for them to be crucified for Musa alayhi salam. Why? Because they are the masters of the trick. And they know that he did not make a trick. And knew that is a reality. So they didn't care what Fir'aun will say because they saw that the miraculous power of the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what changed this state to another. So what they care about? Death. They will not care. And therefore jinn cannot perform miracles, and people sometimes, even though they're strong and they can be fast and all this, they have limitations that Allah put on them and that has restricted them with. One of them is that they cannot take the form of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam in their sleep. They can come in any form except his form sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this from the virtues of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And no matter how strong they are, you start reading the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala amongst them, and you start seeing them getting affected. I want to get to, there's a lot of things I want to speak about. I'm running out of time, so I want to get to something that I want you to learn. Of course, one of the restrictions that is on them is the fact that they open up a door that has been closed, the name of Allah has been mentioned. That's why the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what does he say? He says the hadith, he goes, أطفوا مصابيحكم سموا الله. He mentioned the name of Allah. وأغلقوا أبوابكم وسموا الله. And say what? Mention the name of Allah. The biggest problem of the Muslims today is that the concept of dhikr does not exist in the life at all. Only in the time of salah, some tasbih after that, if they make it. When the fact that the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam has taught us to always be in a state of dhikr. They said that once you close that door and you say Bismillah, no matter who he is, he cannot open it. He cannot open that door. That's why when you enter your house and you mention the name of Allah, he can watch you from outside. But he cannot do it with you anymore. You have to stand outside. Why? Because he mentioned the name of your Lord, his Lord. He stops. And the fear that people have in their hearts is because of the weakness of their iman. Because if you are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're not scared of them. That's why sometimes they will pay to the biggest of the awliya and they will not shake a hair in them. Once Abdullah ibn Zubayr, so one of them, he was in a very ugly state. Other people around him that got scared. He grabbed him from his neck. He grabbed him from his neck. And they appeared to a number of awliya. We're not going to get into that. Are they all disbelievers? No, some of them are believers and some of them are disbelievers. And there are those amongst them who chose the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they believe in the message of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That's why Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, he speaks about an incident when he sat with a man who's a magician who became Muslim afterwards. He said to him, مَا أَعْجِبُ مَا أَتَتْكَ بِهِ جِنِّيَّتُكَ. Because what is the most amazing thing that you've heard from the jinniyah that has come to you? Because there's female and there is male. He said, once I'm sitting and a cattle, a ajal, got slaughtered and a very strong voice was screaming, Ya Najih, a name. Amrun Falih, Rajulun Fasih, Yaqulu la ilaha illallah. And they speak poetry. And they speak very good poetry. That's why some of them, they actually, when some of the companions died, they composed poetry about the death of some of the companions. One of them was Umar radiallahu anhu. But we'll leave that to a different time, because we're running out of time. He goes, Ya Najih, a name of a person, Oh Najih, Amrun Falih, something that will make you successful. Qawlun Fasih, eloquent speech, a man that says La ilaha illallah. When that Kahan heard, and the hadith in Bukhari, when that Kahan, when that Sutta heard about this, what did he do? He became to ask, and they knew about the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam becoming what? Coming out with his prophet. That's why some of them were a cause of others becoming Muslim. وَإِنَّ مِنَّا الْمُسْلِمُونَ وَمِنَّا قَاسِطُونَ. And there's amongst us who are Muslims, and there are those amongst us who are what? From the disbelievers. فَمَنْ أَسْلَمَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ تَحَرَّوْا رَشْدًا. Others, for those who have submitted to become Muslim, then they are the ones who have sought the correct, what? The correct path. وَأَمَّا الْقَاسِطُونَ فَكَانُوا لِجَهَنَّمَ حَطَبًا. And for those qasitun, then they have become wood for the hell. And they met with the Rasul on different occasions. Imam Shibli, he says they met with the Rasul 7 times. Not once. The Wafd Nasibin was only one of the situations. One of them was when the Rasul went by himself. One of them when Ibn Mas'ud was with him. And Ibn Mas'ud says, I saw a large amount of people coming. They are tall and black, wearing white, coming towards me. And the Rasul made a line for me, and he made a circle for me, and he said, you stay within this, and walk out. He goes, and he walked in, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He goes, all I can see, they're all covered in with darkness, and the Rasul disappeared. And Mas'ud was terrified. He goes, I was thinking, should I go call for help? The Rasul disappeared. And then they went, and then the Rasul told him about what happened. The Shibli says that happened 7 times. And they help the Muslim brothers. Those who become Muslim, they help the Muslim brothers. That's why when Umar radiallahu anhu died, they composed poetry about him. When Uthman ibn Affan died, they composed poetry about him. And a number of the companions. And sometimes some people think that angels are helping them, but actually those who are helping them are actually Muslim jinn. They're actually Muslim jinn. One of the people of Ibadah, Safwan ibn Mihriz, he's someone that was keen on Qiyam al-Layl. He used to always pray Qiyam al-Layl. And because he was very consistent, what happened is that he started feeling that there are others who are praying with him. And then what happened is one situation, they expected him, said to him, the Messenger said to him, do not be scared. We're actually the jinn that live in your house, and we are praying with you. And we are praying with you. And by Allah, I know a lady here. She's an old lady, okay? And I know her very well through her children. She used to be very consistent in her qiyam until she got to a stage where she started feeling things around her. Like, because when you become in a state of ibadah, that is very good, and that's what some people cannot understand. You become loved by everything that is around you. Either angels or jinn. So she began to feel people touching her. She got scared to stop praying Qiyam al-Layl. Not the right thing to do. And that's why sometimes they will help Muslims. Ibn Abbas mentions in hadith, in a riwayah, not a hadith, by Sufyan Thawri, from Ikrimah from Ibn Abbas, he goes, once a man left from Khaybar, one of the companions. He walked out, and then two men walked behind him. So one walked out, and then two men walked behind him, and then a man walked after the two. So how many? 1, 2, and 1. Suddenly the two men disappeared. Suddenly the two men disappeared. He goes, and that man came to me. I looked at him, and I said, who are you? He goes, don't be scared, I am your brother from the jinn, and these two were two devils that are trying to hurt you, but I killed them. The news went back to the Rasul ﷺ, and the Rasul ﷺ made a law, and that's a hadith that you hear about, that you're not allowed to travel alone. Alone. Yes. And this is riwayah from Saudi narrated by Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. So what did they do? They helped the Muslim brothers as well. And they help them in the time of war. And they have their own battles as well. And they fight against those who disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why some of the companions, some of the tabi'een, they speak about encounters when they will see cyclones hitting each other. And then, and one of the situations, they saw a snake. So I don't know what happened to one of them. He said he decided to take it. Was it a yellow color? And he wrapped it in a coffin, which was his amama. And then he buried it. He goes, later on, as I traveled, I heard hundreds of voices saying, make a salam on me and tell me, we thank you for what you did. This was a Muslim that has died in one of the battles that we had against the disbelieving jinn. And they thanked him for that. So those who are good, they are with who? With those who are good. And those who are bad are with those who are bad. And that's why some mashayikh, it has happened that they had some contact with some jinn. As it happened to a sheikh from Syria, heard that he actually, once a Muslim jinn, they used to attend his lesson. And the thing is that, with all respect to all the brothers, people do not know about this, but the ulama in fiqh, in the madhab al-Hanbali and other madhab have spoken about this. Imam Abu Ya'la, Imam Ahmad, and others, what is ruling in relation to a jama'ah where there is only jinn involved, is accepted, not accepted. What is ruling if a male jinni wants to marry a female jinni or the other way around? They'll discuss this in fiqh. Something that gets discussed, but doesn't get mentioned a lot because subhanAllah, people logical. And people are scared that, those who don't believe, they're going to think that we are crazy. And I said to you, Akhi, they already think that you are crazy because you believe in God. Don't worry about it. Okay? Because, the world of the jinn is a manifestation of the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's how I personally see it. That shows His power, where He can create. He'll make zillions not be able to, because He doesn't want them to see. Okay? We stop here, inshallah ta'ala. That's, I hope that I benefited you in relation to this. Next week, we'll start talking about the issue of possession. the different opinions of the ulama from the Ash'ara, Maturidiyya, the Salaf, and so forth. Happened, doesn't happen. Comment quickly on that, and then we'll Muhammad wa alihi wa sallam.
To listen to or download more Islamic lectures, please visit www.islamicmedia.com.au.